Hello YouTube, this is Mahadeva the Thunder Wizard. Welcome back to the channel. Solar Flash Update, July 4th. Are you ready to become a god? We're going to talk about how we are going to create the new perfect Earth as a result of the Solar Flash event, which we are in the beginning stages of. I got some notes. I want to make sure that I get to some topics, make sure that I talk through what I want to say. Got a lot of intense feelings going through me right now. Don't really know what that's about. Very powerful, intense feelings. So I want you to really think about the idea of being a god. Not just like a god, but like the most powerful deity you can imagine. And what if you found out that was true? What if you woke up one day and if it was proven to you that you were the most powerful deity that has ever existed, and that everything that you experience is your own creation. I mean, if you really accepted that, many religions talk about that. Shaivism, the worship of Shiva, they have a mantra, Shivoham, which means I am Shiva. It's a mantra. It's a mantra that if you spend your whole life doing it and you believe it and you accept it, it's said to bring you complete release from reincarnation from the third dimension. So I just want you to sit with that for a moment. What does it mean? Before we get into anything deeper, I want to remind you what this channel is about. This channel is about doing the work. And I mean, I'd like to believe that listening to me would be enough. Just listening to me talk would liberate you. Maybe it will, maybe it won't, I don't know. But what we're going to talk about today is what happens, how you create the reality that you have in the third dimension, how you would create a new perfect 5D Earth, and that nothing happens without action. Action includes assumptions and beliefs, because your physical actions will be a direct result of your assumptions and beliefs. And once again, if you're listening carefully, I haven't said a thing about feelings. Your feelings do not create your world. Your thoughts do not create your world. Your thoughts and your feelings, however, can stimulate you to take actions, which will then create the world of your thoughts and your feelings. But your thoughts and your feelings by themselves don't have the power to create anything. They only have the power to give you impulses, and if you listen to those impulses, then you will create what those feelings are wanting to keep you trapped in. And if you want to create, like if you want to be God and you want to create the universe, which you did, if you want to be God and create the universe, you must come from a place of what the Buddhists call shunyata, what the Huna people call 0 point, emptiness, the void. You have to be in a neutral space where you're not reacting to an impulse. When you're in a state of neutrality, then joy erupts spontaneously. So if you're seeking to find joy in anything outside of you, relationships, sex, love, fame, money, anything, alcohol, drugs, it doesn't matter. If it's outside of you and if you are seeking to find joy through that, you never will. This is the lesson of Rahu. Rahu, the north node of the moon in Vedic astrology, who seeks to either show you that truth, that everything is inside of you, or trap you in the obsession of seeking to find joy in anything outside of you. This is codependence. People mistake the word codependence for meaning to be clingy and need to be in a relationship, and that's not what codependence is. Codependence is seeking to gain your value, your lovability, from something outside of you, including reputation, including how you look, including other people, including relationships, including drugs, alcohol, anything outside of you. So you are an infinite being of light, and you are self-created in the moment. You are a spontaneous, self-created being in the moment of zero, the moment of nothing. In fact, if you look at what most people, even most scientists believe, and many mythologies say about how the world was created, say first there was nothing, and then out of nothing exploded everything. That means you were in a state of neutrality. You weren't anything. And from that, joy was spontaneously released within you, which created this universe. All right, so as I said, this channel is about taking actions. And as I said, I'd love it if me talking to you fixed your problems and gave you the reality. I don't know if that's true or not, but I operate from the assumption of what has worked for me is what I teach. And I have to take actions. I have to follow a disciplined life of taking actions towards what my joy wants from me. And in order to learn how to do that, and in order to create the energy necessary to do that, I have to take certain actions. That's what the Warrior 90-Day Lightning Qigong is all about. So I encourage you to go there. By the way, I've made it easier to navigate. So this is the screenshot that you'll see. And if you see there, you see a couple things. You'll see a magnifying glass that says search posts. So you can find whatever you're looking for there by entering any search terms you want. And then you can see Lightning Qigong 90-day, right? You can see that. So click on Lightning Qigong or 90-day, and that way you don't have to go searching for all of the Lightning Qigong videos. Of course, start with the first one and go from there. Courses.thunderwizard.com, all of my services, Vedic astrology readings, rune readings, certifications, all kinds of stuff. My books, Interdimensional Revolution, as well as Extraterrestrials Are Coming to Earth, as well as The Shamanic Secret Commandment to a Perfect Life. I recommend all three of those books. Now, back to the Solar Flash update. Are you ready to become a god? How to create a new perfect Earth. So, this is where we're going. The age of the third dimension is over. And in the age of the third dimension, you weren't a god, because that's what the third dimension wants to program into you, the belief, the assumption that you are not a god. The third dimension wants to program you to believe that you are a limited, tiny being that is at the mercy of all of these external forces. And so when you allow the dynamic of the third dimension to hypnotize you into that, you do get trapped in that belief, which then creates thoughts and feelings, which gives impulses. When you act on those impulses, you then concretely create the third dimensional slave world. So if people want to know, do you live in a slave planet? If you feel as though you do, you do. But it wasn't anything anybody else did to you. It was something you did to yourself. Why would you do that? You are an infinite 12th dimensional being. If you want to, please feel free to go on to YouTube and search dimensions. What would it be like to be in the 5th dimension? There's some really great videos on there that'll explain from a physics perspective what it's like to be in 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, and 9th. Once you get to the 9th dimension and above, if I remember it correctly, you no longer have the ability to have a physical body. It's not possible. You have become a probability to such a degree that you can't be physically, concretely manifested. You live in so many different probabilities and timelines that it's impossible to be a physical person. And at that point, you are a god. Truth is, if you get to the 5th dimension, from our 3rd dimensional perspective, that being is a god. But once you get to the 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th, you are, once you get to, 11 and 12, you really are what we consider to be the almighty, all-powerful, all-knowing. You become that. And I'm here to tell you that you are that. You already are there. Your consciousness is there, and it is completely focused in infinite numbers of timelines and worlds and dimensions and universes where your consciousness is spread in all these different places, and one of them here is in planet Earth. Now, because you are a 12th dimensional being, you can put every single ounce of your concentration on every single manifestation that is you. So don't get the feeling that, your 12th dimensional self will forget about you because, it's so spread out. No, when you get to that level, every single ounce of your concentration can be in any one little point and every point. So your experience of the 3D, just know that your 12th dimensional self is completely, totally focused on you. And it is doing this because that part of you wants to learn how to become even more powerful, how to better create reality. So you created this 3rd dimensional reality so that you would be in a very tightly packed pressure cooker that would bring out the tiniest little limitations in your awareness, and it would bring that to the surface. When that comes to the surface, you then have a thought, you have a negative feeling, you have anger, you have fear, you have loneliness, you have whatever it is, and that feeling then creates an impulse. When you act on that impulse, you then manifest that 3rd dimensional reality, and then you have the experience that you can't escape it. And so life becomes an exercise in learning how to create rather than respond. Unfortunately, for most humans, they never really learn that lesson. Because if you learn that lesson completely, you will completely leave your 3rd dimensional body behind. You will phase out of existence. And so some people have done that. Most people don't. But now the time has come where you have decided, in your 12th dimensional wisdom, you have decided that the 3rd dimensional experiment has come to an end. That you have learned everything that you're going to learn from being limited, from being trapped by thoughts and negative emotions, and replaying them and having them trap you. You've learned everything that you can, and so now you are going to erase the 3rd dimension, and you are going to create a higher vibrational version of that where you actually get to have more freedom to experience manifesting from your joy and creating and living like a god. You still want to have fun, because being in the 3rd dimension is fun. Like any video game, it's fun. But you're going to relieve yourself of the shackles of the intense gravity of the 3rd dimensional prison planet that you've created, and you will create a new one. Having said that, none of the responsibility is leaving you. You are still 100% responsible for creating that now. And that's what we're going to talk about. So I'm going to go through an understanding of the shamanic bodies within you. By the way, this is found in multiple traditions. This is found in the Norse tradition. This is found in the Vedic tradition. This is found in the Taoist tradition. This is found in the Hawaiian Huna tradition. It is found in the Siberian shamanic tradition. It is even copied and mirrored in the Christian tradition, and that is that you are made up of a trinity. There are three main beings that live within you. You are a community of three beings. You have a higher self, a middle self, and a lower self. Now above that, we could go above that even further, and if we go above the trinity that is you, then there is that 12th dimensional source of you. And that is what you would call God, but it is actually you. Let me again tell you how that's you instead of what you're experiencing as you. Think of any projector, a slide projector, a movie projector. I don't even know they make that anymore, but you have this thing that projects light onto a screen. The light projects onto the screen, and the screen, there are pictures that move around and they look like they're alive, but they're not. They're just a projection on a two-dimensional screen. Your brain turns it into 3D by looking at it, and you create an illusion that you can see 3 dimensions, but there's only 2. Now imagine that same thing here on 3-dimensional Earth. You have a 3-dimensional screen, and that is projected onto with a quantum projector. And even some physicists say that we actually live in 2 dimensions, but our brain turns it into 3. Either way, it's the same. You live in this limited dimension, and what is projected onto the 3-dimensional screen is your avatar, your life. Now, you, unlike the 2-dimensional version of movies and television that you watch on 2-dimensional screens, if you watch that movie over and over again, it's going to be the same every time. The characters make the same mistakes every single time. They make the same conclusions. Whatever good things they do, it's always the same. And they don't have any, those characters don't have any life or choice of their own. You, however, you are a 3-dimensional avatar that is projected onto a 3-dimensional screen, and you do have choice. However, if you do nothing, the script will play itself out, and you will not be able to escape responding to the feelings that come up, that you will not be able to avoid responding to the thoughts that come up. And when you get impulses based on those thoughts and feelings, you will have to act on them. It'll be a reflex. You won't be able to stop yourself, and you will have all kinds of feelings. And the script has been written for you when you were born. You were born in such and such family with this, at this place, with this economy, and this time in history, with these parents and these siblings and these friends, and the events that happen to you will create thoughts and feelings and impulses. You will respond to them, which will create a pattern that will be inescapable unless you become aware that you are in fact God. Once you become aware that you are God, you will then either choose to believe or you will become convinced that you have this impossible ability. And I want to stress this. What I'm talking about is impossible for you to do. But you have the ability to do it. And that is, whenever you have a thought or a feeling, you completely, totally surrender to the experience of that thought and feeling, and you do not allow it to force you into responding. You can respond to it if you choose, but if you choose not to respond to the impulse, you then become neutral. That feeling will go away. So what ends up happening is that every experience becomes a memory. Third dimension is all about memory. The third dimension, time, is the fourth dimension, and time from our experience flows from past to future. Time actually doesn't do that. That's just the experience of what happens in the third dimension. And when you have an experience, that creates a thought and a feeling. That thought and feeling is an impulse. Now, the impulse may only result in you creating a belief about anything. And once you create that belief, that is an action. That action then solidifies that thought and feeling into manifesting a concrete reality. You have a negative experience and you tell yourself, this is bad. Now it is. It has now become bad. You have, I'm going to give you the best example I can give you is borderline personality disorder. It's just so cut and dry clear. If you know anything about borderlines, it's a very serious mental illness that is treatable, but it's very serious. And what has happened is you have infants who were not given love or attention or physical touch, usually all of those things, and or perhaps even abuse on top of that. And what happens with infants are pure feeling, and they are pure emotions and nervous system. They're just 100% feelings of all kinds. And in order for them to survive that, they need to be loved. They need constant love, constant touch, constant reaffirmation. When they don't get that, they die. They will die from lack of love long before they die from lack of food or shelter. So somebody who becomes what's called the cluster B, which borderline is one of them, what ends up happening is that they don't get love and attention, but they get just enough so that it doesn't kill them. But what happens is it creates a trauma within their little nervous system and their psyche where they sense they are about to die at any moment. That the negative emotions are so overwhelming that it literally has the power to kill them. And they feel it. And that trauma never goes away. They are now locked in a response to their nervous system and to the brain, which is telling them they are going to die from lack of love. Now, this creates, you would think, well, all you have to do is love them and then they'll be okay. And that is definitely what they present. They present to the world as adults, if you just love me, I'll be okay. And then you go to love them and a strange thing happens. A completely opposite thing happens. You go to love them and they love you like an infant. You don't know that at the time. You just think you found the most loving adult that ever existed, but they're actually an infant, and out of their need, they are completely, totally vulnerable and loving you. And you think you found the perfect partner. Until they actually become aware of the intimacy that it creates. When they become aware that they are about to be seen and loved, they're about to get everything they've wanted, the fear of rejection, which means death, becomes so overwhelming that they go crazy. And they begin to tell themselves that you are trying to kill them. And then they lash out at you, sometimes physically, but in all kinds of ways, and it is incredibly destructive to the other partner. But what ends up happening is that they create a self-fulfilling prophecy, because eventually everybody rejects them. And they end up living out a life of constant rejection. The thing they want the most, the thing they never get, the thing they fear the most, they do get. So you see, they are living a memory, and it has nothing to do with what's physically happening to them in that moment. It has everything to do with what happened to them when they were 6 months old, a year old. It's a memory being replayed. It's a trauma that's being replayed, and every time they have that feeling, they react in the same way. They can't help themselves. Unless, of course, they become aware. If they become aware of what they're doing, and they become aware that they're living in a repeated trauma memory, then they will learn, if they have enough, treatment and enough commitment, they will learn how to act completely contrary. They will know that the feeling that tells them that this person is trying to kill them, they will be able to know that is the opposite of what's happening. This person is trying to love me. I'm afraid of dying. I need to do the opposite of what my instincts are telling me to do. My instincts are telling me to throw coffee in their face and scream and run and slash their tires and block them and call the police. And I'm not kidding. This is the kind of stuff that they do. And you give you your card, say I love you, I want to live with you forever, and they go to the police and say he raped me. I mean, that's the kind of craziness that comes out of them. So when they become aware that those responses are false, and that the overwhelming impulse for survival, which is telling them to destroy that relationship, destroy that person, when they become aware that that is false and they learn to act opposite of that, then they're able to have, with a lot of work, they're able to have real relationships. This is the perfect example because this is the third dimension in a nutshell. Every negative feeling you have, every negative thought you have is a memory. A memory of the past. The past does not exist. The past does not exist. So you are operating from a perceived truth that isn't real. Now, you cannot create in that state. You cannot act as God in that state because God operates from neutrality. God has no past or no future. God is simply the experience of bliss. And when God is in the bliss of his or her own existence, then they create. They create worlds. They create universes. You are this person. You have done that. And if you had the commitment and the belief and the ability, you could become that right now. You could ascend to the 12th dimension and never leave. And it is incredibly easy and it is incredibly simple. And yet, the illusion of the third dimension is so strong that it keeps us trapped from experiencing that. Okay, so that's the background of this. As I said, you created the third dimension to be the harshest school in the multiverse because every emotional memory can become a concrete physical reality. When you're in the 12th dimension, nothing is a concrete reality. It's you imagine it. But when you're in the third dimension, every harsh feeling and memory and action actually concretely creates your prison. And this could be your physical health. I've come to the conclusion that health is nothing more than being in a state of neutrality where joy is flowing through you and your DNA and your organs and your body then functions perfectly. If you have disease, it means that you're still living, you're replaying a memory. And that memory, as it continues to replay over time, somaticizes and becomes physical. It changes your DNA. It changes everything and it becomes a physical reality. And it doesn't matter what it is. The doctors more and more and more are coming to the conclusion that everything comes down to stress. And stress is nothing more than you trying to solve an unsolvable problem, trying to be lovable, trying to get more money, trying to be more popular, trying to look better. These are things that are unsolvable. because they're created to be unsolvable. The elites created money. You know, if you think about it, we think money exists and it doesn't. Again, I'm going to rant on and on. Our shamanic ancestors never had money. What existed for them was what was around them, because it physically existed. Did they have food? Yep. What is money? So you walk up to somebody you walk up to some, primitive shamanic tribal guy wherever, and and he has skins, and he has meat, and he has whatever else he needs to survive, and you walk up to him with a wad of cash or a bunch of gold, he's going to go, what do you want me to do with that? Well, here, if I give you that, I want to take your stuff. He's going to say, don't take my stuff. I need that to survive. What am I supposed to do with this? I can't eat it. I can't wipe my butt with it. I can't do anything with it. Oh, it's worth something. It's only worth something if I can do something with it. If it can serve my physical needs, that's the only thing that has worth. But if you convince them enough that no, this has value, and what is more important is that you have this value than other people, and then of course everybody buys into it. It's a game. It's a pretend game. Everybody buys into this pretend game, and then they believe it. And once they believe it, they're over, because people die because of it. People are homeless because of it. People kill because of an idea. You don't have enough of that. You don't have enough of this stuff. I'm going to kill you for it. I'm going to take your monopoly money away from you. I mean, what's the difference? Monopoly money versus real money. What's the difference? Nothing. They're both pieces of paper. People die over this. And they don't have to be killed by somebody. They just have to worry about not having enough of it. Not having enough of nothing. It's absolutely insane. It creates disease. All right. So again, all of that stuff is a memory that you're replaying in your head. So you are either creating from your neutrality and your joy, or you are creating a prison by responding to your emotional memories. So I'm going to prove to you through somebody else's a story that I've told a few times. I think there's enough new people that I can tell this story again. You may not have heard it. Most of you, maybe you have, but it's okay. It's worth hearing time and time again. I never get tired of hearing it. There was a Hawaiian shaman who passed away last year. His name was Haleakala Hugh Lin. And if I remember correctly, I believe that he was a psychologist originally. And then he learned from a Hawaiian Huna shaman. And then that became what he did. He became a Huna shaman after that. And you can find him on YouTube. Go look for him. The E is an I, Haleakala, Hugh Lin. Just go look for him. Huna, you'll find him. And the story, as I remember it, went like this. He had gained a reputation of being like a miraculous psychologist, healing people of all kinds of mental problems. And there was an insane asylum, and they had a few really bad patients that they had to do things like chain them to the wall, and because they were so dangerous, biting people's ears off and throwing feces everywhere, and they were just really, 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 really insane and really destructive, and they didn't want to torture these people. So they heard about Dr. Hugh Lin, and they asked him, would you come and work with these patients? Now he is now practicing what I'm saying, which is he is what he calls cleaning. He's cleaning his, I'm going to say hard drive. He called it data from his lower self. So remember, you got three selves, one here, one here, one here. The lower self is your unconscious mind, which has all of the memories. So he, as a Huna shaman, his main focus is to clean himself of all of those unconscious memories so that he can be at a place of neutrality where then he can experience bliss and create. That's his whole point, his whole focus in life. So when somebody comes to him with one of these requests, he checks in with his higher self to see if he has some kind of what we would call karmic destiny with them. And if he gets a hit that he has a karmic destiny with him, he will take the client. That's how I understand his process. So he says, yes, I will come and do what I can. So he gets there and they say, okay, great. When can you meet with this client? And I mean, this patient, and this patient. He says, oh, I'm never going to meet with them. I said, how are you gonna treat them? He says, don't worry, that's my problem. All I want is for you to give me an office and give me their files. And I don't know if they tried to push it further or something. And I think he responded with something like, take it or leave it. That's what I do. And so what could they do? They said, okay. They gave him an office and they gave him, a stack of files. So he'd take, problem patient number 1, bring the file, open it up, read John Doe, blah, 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 bit off the ear. And if he has a response like, oh my God, that's so horrible, then he stops. He closes it and he cleans the memory. And he does that by apologizing to himself. He says, I'm sorry. And he thanks himself. Thank you for this opportunity to clean myself. I'm sorry. And what he's apologizing for, he's apologizing to himself for seeing a perfect being as being imperfect. And that's causing him pain. Because when he has a judgment, oh my God, that's so horrible. Look at that guy biting. That's a painful experience. And it's a memory. He believes that this is a memory that he created in a past life, and he's going to clean himself of that memory. And so he continues to apologize to himself, to what he calls the data, the memory of that person, until that person in his unconscious mind becomes perfect. And he sees them as they are, which is a perfect being of light. And when he gets to that point, he now is free from that impulse to judge, closes the file and moves on to the next. So he does that with every single client or every single patient that comes along. And the amazing thing was, this is, I believe this is, proven somehow. But the amazing thing is that those problem patients all recovered completely and were set free. They went from being so insane that they bite people's ears off, have to be chained to the wall, and without anybody physically interacting with them, they become completely cured. And when you asked him about it, he would say, well, everything comes from me. I've created everything. Everything that I experience that comes into my field of experience that I have a reaction to is my creation. So I'm responsible for fixing my experience of that creation. And when I get to the point and I see things for what they really are, which is everything is perfect, everything is beautiful, everything is love and light, shall we say. When I can get to that point, then my external experience has to respond. If I truly clean myself, my external environment will follow. Now, from our perspective, the only being that can do that is God. The only being that can choose to heal somebody of an incurable disease is God. And he says that's true for all of you. You are all 100% responsible for everything that you create. So that works really well in a limited 3D environment for a while. But we're moving out of that. We're moving out of that, and according to, what I've been told, I'm not the only person that believes this, if this is true, then what's going to happen is we are going to move out of this third dimensional prison planet of our own making, and we will move into a perfect heaven on earth planet, which means that you have to create it. It won't appear if you don't create it. I did not believe in any of this. I am not somebody that has followed any of this stuff. It wasn't until a little over a year ago that I even heard about most of this stuff. I had no idea what the solar flash was. I had no idea what the event was. I had no idea about ascension or any of that. I mean, I'd heard maybe the word ascension. That was about it. But I didn't know about any of this other stuff. And I wouldn't have believed it if you brought it to my attention. I would have said, well, you know, that's nice fantasy, but that's just not how the world works. Even though I taught that everything is your own responsibility, which is true, and I knew that then, that if I want to be happy, I create my own reality, but I never expanded it to the idea that we actually had the ability to create an entire different planet, a completely different universe. And as you know, a year ago, I did human-initiated contact with extraterrestrials, and I had life-changing experiences, which you can look, if you go back into my channel a year ago, you can watch me go through all of that. Completely demolished my understanding of reality and confirmed all of the spirituality that I was teaching about, you know, creating your own reality and you are God, but not really taking it all that seriously, only, you know, interpreting it limitedly. And what I found out was that, no, that's absolutely literal, true, everything, all of that stuff. And these beings showed me that there's going to be some kind of worldwide event that will be in the sky that everybody will see, and everybody will think that whatever their belief is, Jesus is coming again, or whatever their spiritual belief is, they will believe that God is coming, and then that will instantly turn into something different. Well, they'll have a different understanding of what spirituality really is. I don't know what that is. That's just what they showed me. And I asked them afterwards, I said, what is this event going to be? Because I could only imagine, you know, fleets of spaceships coming and, you know, making people realize, oh, you know, this was before all this talk now is going on in the news about aliens and UFOs. So now everybody's talking about it now, even though they're being fed a lie about it. But I asked them, I said, what's this event going to be? Is it going to be a fleet of spaceships? And they said, no. It's going to be a series of solar waves of love that will hit the earth and shift the earth up to a new level. And I didn't know what that meant. I came to find out later that what that meant was that actually, according to at least what I'm being told, as I interpret it now, that Earth is going to split into two. That there's going to be a higher dimensional Earth and a lower dimensional 3D Earth. Is that it? Yeah. So I asked these beings numerous times, I said, when is this solar flash going to come? And if you watch my videos from a year ago, I actually made predictions. It's going to be next week, something like that. And, you know, it didn't happen that way, but because I didn't know. It felt like it was going to happen, you know, tomorrow. And so I asked them, when is this going to happen? And I kept getting the same response, which was, it will happen when you decide it will happen. And what they meant by that is they meant me. They weren't saying you plural. They were saying me. That it's up to me. When I decide it's going to happen, it's going to happen. Now, of course, that is true for you as well. But one of the things that these beings do is they don't minimize things by turning the you into a plural. You know, when you love yourself, when you believe you're God, when you humans decide it will happen. They didn't say that. They were very specific. When you, Mahadeva, when you, the Thunder Wizard guy, when you decide it's going to happen, it's going to happen. And until then, it won't. And they've come to me at times and said, how would you like to be? How would you, Mahadeva, how would you like to be the person solely responsible for bringing the entire earth into the fifth dimension? And he said, as you can imagine, that kind of stuff, your brain just breaks at that. Because it's not just an idea, there's an energy behind it. You can feel a higher dimensional energy giving this to you, expanding your awareness as you're getting this telepathic message, and it's very hard to take it symbolically. In fact, for me, it's impossible. And then I go back and I listen to and replay the story of, what Dr. Hugh Lin did. When he said, yeah, those mental patients, they're a bad memory in my lower self. And I'm sorry that I am seeing these perfect beings in this false way. So I'm going to see them as they truly are. And when I do that, then my experience, this projection onto the third dimensional screen, will change because I changed how I saw them. What he's saying is he's God. He's saying that he creates this world every moment. Every moment he is creating this world, for good or for ill. If you believe that false beings of light trap you in the third dimension and then feed off of your energy, you're creating that. I was an exorcist for years, so I can tell you that demons are real. But what the interesting thing about demons is that, when you cast out a demon, one of the ways you do that is you get the demon to speak his or her name. And that is supposedly gives you power over them, because once you know their name, you can command them. That's the idea. And what's interesting is that, people would love to believe that, demons are going to call themselves Beelzebub and all kinds of things like that, but they don't. Demons always call themselves by emotions, always. Lust, greed, self-hatred, regret, sadness, depression. Those are the names that they say that they are. Those are feelings. And feelings are memories. And when somebody keeps replaying the same memory over and over again, and they respond to that memory, they feel bad, they pick up and drink, whiskey. They feel bad, and they put drugs in their system. They're now responding, reacting to that feeling, and giving it more power. And it now becomes a force. That's, I learned very early on that when I was doing exorcisms, that those people needed to go to a therapist. Because I could sometimes get rid of the demons, but I'd say, if you don't change your life, they're going to come back. And of course, they didn't change their life. Why? Because they are addicted to responding to the memories that keep coming up inside of them. So when you have a memory, the mental language of that memory is a thought. People do this, that happened to me, women are this, men are that. It's a thought. Of course, that thought comes from an experience. You got your feelings hurt when you were 14 years old by a girl who wanted to go out with a 16-year-old guy with a car, and then that memory crops up, and then every time you think of women, you think, oh, they only want guys with money. That's what's going on when you hear people talk like that. That's one of the ways that happens. It's a memory replaying itself. And then what ends up happening, the only women that they ever encounter and the only women that they ever ask out are women who only are interested in money. And so they keep telling themselves the only thing women are interested in money. That's all they want is money. Same thing, you could throw it around the opposite with women. Oh, men are only interested in sex. It's a replay of a memory, And so your brain responds to that memory with a thought. Your body responds to that memory with an emotion. You become angry, you become sad, you become embarrassed, you become whatever. Those are all the responses to a memory. A memory that happened in the past, and the past does not exist. It is a form of insanity. So all humans are basically insane, because they believe the past is existing, and of course, because they're God and they've forgotten that they're God, they keep creating the same reality. So you complain about the government. I can understand that. We just went through 3 years where the government was telling people they couldn't work, they couldn't travel unless they took this, certain thing, and that certain thing wasn't necessarily what everybody needed. That's a really, you realize you're not free. You thought you lived in a free society, and you realize you don't anymore. When you start to dig into things and you find out that, the economy, like it's a thing, is completely made up and manipulated. And when you go even deeper and you, as I said before, you realize that money doesn't exist. Money doesn't exist, and people are dying over it. You could have a lot of negative feelings about that. But the only way you could have a negative feeling about it is if you believe it, if you buy into it. And remember, belief is an action. So these thoughts and these feelings create impulses. If you act on the impulse, you then create the reality. And what's happening? People are killing each other in Russia, Ukraine. That's just one part of the world where people are killing each other. Over what? Nothing. They're being manipulated. And of course, the only reason the manipulation works is that they have their own thoughts and memories that they respond to. They project that onto whatever manipulation is being given to them. All right, let me go back to my notes, make sure that I get through everything here. So the way to do the cleaning, as Dr. Lin would call it, is to not react to the thoughts and the feelings, to just let them sort of dissipate without taking action on them. To, when a negative thought or a negative feeling or a negative impulse, like the impulse to go drink, if you're an alcoholic, if you're a drug addict, the impulse to go get loaded. If that comes up, then you clean yourself by saying thank you, or you say, I'm sorry. You apologize to yourself for, that negative feeling is telling you this world is crappy. This world is out to get you. You're not perfect. Something like that. Because the natural state, your original state, is in a state of perfected bliss. That is your actual state of being in the 12th dimension. And really, your greatest accomplishment is to achieve that while in the 3rd dimension. While in the 3rd dimension, if you achieve that state and you connect completely with your original essence full of bliss, you will disappear from this reality. And I guess you'll become whatever you want. You'll become a Babaji. And you'll live for 5,000 years and walk through walls and whatever the heck he was all about. And so that's one way. One way is to not react and to continuously seek to apologize to yourself for choosing to create this negative feeling. Now, let's go back to the 3 selves. You have your higher self, which is like a counselor. You have your lower self, which is all of the recorded memories, which create your thoughts and create your feelings. Now, the thing is, we never make memories of anything that isn't significant. So the vast majority of our memories are negative because we had an uncomfortable experience that created a fear, which then we said, well, okay, in order not to die, I have to hate these people. In order not to die, I have to lie about this. In order not to die, I have to manipulate people this way. In order not to die, I have to beat myself up. You know, that was the reaction that you chose to have because you had an uncomfortable experience. And then those are stored in you. Those are your survival memories that crop up. So that's your lower self. Your middle self. Your middle self is where your soul exists. And the soul is called the king for a reason, because the king has the power of choice. The king commands everybody else. You do this, you do that, I decree this. So if there's a king who can't make a decision, guess what happens? All of the people rise up, and the ministers rise up, and all of the elite rise up, and they start taking over control of the kingdom. You know, sort of like what happens in England. You know, they've got a king who has zero authority. He can't make any decisions. He can't make any laws. He can't do anything. He's stripped of all power. He's just a figurehead. So he can't make any choices. He's actually a prisoner. You know, the royal family, it's kind of sad. They're a prisoner. They can't do anything. They have to act a certain way, and outside of that, they really can't do anything. That's why anyway. So your soul is the person who makes the choice. Now, when you were an infant, if you are somebody that turned into becoming a borderline, for example, every time that you felt that impulse that you were about to die from lack of love, you made a decision to react to that. Narcissists, we're talking about people with narcissistic personality disorder, people with severe mental illness. They create a false reality. That's why narcissists have no empathy. That's why they're so destructive, because it's a wounded infant who creates a false reality the way he thinks reality should be. He doesn't know. He's an infant. So he creates a false reality where instead of him being able to worship his parents as gods, which infants do, he can't do that. So he creates a false vision of himself and worships that as God. And of course, since it's an infant, a sad, traumatized infant, that God becomes like Jehovah, becomes a tyrant, becomes destructive and controlling. And so that's all that infant did. That infant consciously, deliberately chose to create a false reality in order to survive, and then got trapped in it. And same problem with narcissists as borderlines. If they simply allowed people to love them, they could be happy. They could live in the moment. Oh, I'm not a beleaguered, neglected, abused infant anymore. Oh, I don't have to respond that way anymore. Okay, I won't. It's not that easy. And this is the third dimension. All right, so your soul makes the choice. You have to understand that you choose to respond, even though the impulse, and let me be clear, I am not minimizing the impulses that drug addicts, alcoholics, narcissists, codependents, borderlines have. The impulses are overwhelming. And the impulses are so strong, they feel as though if the people don't respond to those impulses, it will kill them. So I'm not minimizing it, but it is still a choice. My eyes were opened when I learned that people with Tourette's syndrome can be cured. Because the way that they tell you, if you listen to them, they'll say they can't control their impulses. And if you notice, their impulses are always negative. They're punching themselves in the face, punching themselves in the stomach, or they're screaming obscenities at somebody, or whatever impulse. And you find out that when you listen to people who've cured themselves of it, that the impulse is really strong, but they can choose not to act on those impulses if they change the way that they view themselves. And this is discipline. This is meditation. This is Qigong. The 90-day challenge has 3 phases, and each phase is 90 days, and you do the same practice 3 practices every day. And that's discipline. Discipline means you commit to doing something regardless of how you feel. Regardless of how you feel, you do that practice. Even if the practice is meaningless. Even if the practice means nothing. If you commit to doing something and you have to go against your impulses, you then train yourself to choose how you're going to react in every moment. And this is why in the past, for instance, when you went to go learn with a yogi in the past, the yogi would be in his hut in the Himalayas, and you would go to train with him. And, there are stories of, you'd have to stay in some posture on your stomach for 3 days straight before he would even acknowledge your existence. He wasn't doing that to be an a-hole. He was doing that to see if you had the discipline to go against your impulses to, follow direction. Because if you can follow his direction, he'll be able to liberate you. But in order to do that, you got to follow his direction. You have to have the power of choice. Your soul has to be able to be stronger than your bodily memory self-defense impulse response. If you go to, same thing, you go to, the old Chinese masters. I don't even know if any of them exist. The weird thing is now in China, if you don't want to learn things like Wing Chun, there will be some European guy. And all the Chinese guys will go and learn from some European Wing Chun master. It's getting like that. The Chinese are throwing away their traditions. But the old school Chinese guys, if you walked into their studio and you said, I want to learn from you, Sifu, you didn't ask any questions. You didn't grill them about what is this and what do you teach and what's the you don't do that. The moment you start grilling them, they say, thank you, there's the door. I can't help you. And you walk in and you say, I want to train with you, Sifu, and Sifu says, okay, go stand on your head in the corner. You never ask how long. If you say how long, he says, there's the door. Thank you for showing up. Sorry, I can't help you. No, you went and you stood on your head in the corner until he told you to stop. They'd do things like they'd get up and they'd leave. They'd go have tea, go have lunch. They'd come back an hour later and they'd know if you had moved. They'd know because they'd been there. They could tell by looking at you. If they're powerful enough, they can see your aura. They'll know immediately if you've moved or not. And they're doing it to see if you can follow direction. That's completely opposite from your impulse. The old Kung Fu series showed that. All of the kids would be outside and if they were playing or if they were making noise, the monk would come out and he would say, thank you, please go home. And only those students that sat there overnight, in the full lotus posture, if they stayed that way for 3 or 4 days, then he'd finally say, come on in. And the only reason is because they showed that they have the ability to make the choice to take actions that were contrary to their impulses. You get the point? How many people in our world today are taught how to do that? Almost none. I mean, we have an internet. Again, I get on people's cases for not knowing how to search inside my YouTube channel. And people get so offended when I point out to them, you haven't even bothered to Google how to search inside somebody's YouTube channel. You tried it, you couldn't do it, and so then you proclaim to the whole world, I tried it and I couldn't do it. I don't know how to do it on my phone. And simply because I'm a little bit older, and I lived in the day where you actually had to track things down, I've learned how to do things like, if I want to know how to search within somebody's YouTube channel and I don't know how to do it on a phone, I go and I type it into Google. And lo and behold, I get the answer. I went looking for it. I didn't accept anything at face value. I didn't give up. People give up because they're trained to get everything right now. Everything right now. The internet has completely destroyed people's ability. I mean, when I see this stuff about, getting Chat GPT to write books for you, even the programs that, these programs that people use that will correct their grammar for them. I mean, why don't you want to learn how to speak and write correctly? Because you've been trained not to. And now you can be controlled. Because you don't know how. You don't know how to make your own choices. Everybody makes choices for you. You are, if you're a typical moderner, you respond to your memories, your nervous system, your impulses. You haven't even been told that you have the ability to choose to do something different in every moment. All right, so your higher self gets information from the higher realms, your higher 12th dimensional self. Your lower self must first become your servant. So this is what discipline does. What discipline does is it teaches the lower self like a dog. It trains the lower self to seek to give you more power of choice, to seek to help you free yourself. That only comes when you discipline it with the choice that you make here. Because what happens is your lower self, you're going to get all of your information from, you've got the three selves here, and then there's the 12th dimensional part of you that's up in the 12th dimension. The 12th dimensional part of you communicates directly to your lower self. So your lower self is what gives you the information. Psychics get their information from their lower self. How do you know? Because they say, I got a gut feeling. And if I've bumped into a lot of extremely psychic people in my life. And I would say at least half of them can't tell the difference between an actual psychic impression that they're getting and what their unconscious is telling them. Because I've run into people who were brilliant until you asked them something that their ego was attached to, and then you'd get this really weird response that was completely out of left field. But when they weren't attached, they were able to give you these psychic, things about you and about other things. It's because the lower self, you have to clean it of your attachment. You clean it from your attachment to being addicted to responding to the memories, the emotions, and the thoughts and the nervous system. When you can do that, then you'll be able to be the perfect shaman, the perfect psychic, because you won't have an agenda. You won't have a personal agenda. How do you not have a personal agenda? Make sure that you are fulfilled. How do you become fulfilled? In this life, you chase after your soul's joy. And you do everything in your power. In fact, you must be willing to die to achieve your soul's joy. When you do that, you no longer have any attachment because you know that your fulfillment comes from something greater than this third dimensional reality. So I need that. Some people want to just go after emptying themselves, and if that works for you, great. That doesn't work for me. I'm too selfish. I need to enjoy my life. So I am fueled by making myself happy, and I focus on following what my soul wants me to do, and then I do whatever I have to do to experience that. And that gives me the ability to not be attached. And when I'm not attached, then I can hear my higher self because my lower self will interpret it. I can take action on it, and I can achieve what I want. All right, so so the idea is to go back to bliss. That normal state of who you are is a state of bliss. Anyway, so as always, I brought too much stuff in that I could talk about succinctly, so I babbled a lot. But anyway, there's that. So this is what the Warrior 90-Day Challenge is all about. Let me be clear, because sometimes people aren't clear on what this is. And here's the screenshot. Whoops, Here's the screenshot. If you subscribe, you'll see this, and you see that box that says Lightning Qigong there. You see 90 day. It's kind of hard to see. And below that, there's a search bar above that. So now it is easier to find what you're looking for, especially the 90-day people. But let me be clear about this. In order for this to work, you have to be willing to discipline yourself. And I give you the option. Of course, you can do whatever you want because it's a video course. I can't force you to do anything. But I give you the option, do you want to do the morning practice, the afternoon and the evening? You want to do all three? Then do all three every day. You want to just do one? You want to do the morning? Or you want to do the morning and the night? Or you only want to do the night? It doesn't matter. If you do every single practice the way I've got it lined out, you just simply press play and you do it every single day for 90 days, I guarantee you're going to bump into your impulses that are going to try and talk you out of doing it. You're going to be too bored, or you're going to be too tired, or the feelings are going to be too intense, or there's a party down the street, or whatever it is. And then you have to, because you're only doing it for yourself. I'm not there watching you, shaking my finger at you. You have to say, no, I am going to listen to my soul, and I'm going to discipline myself, and I'm going to choose to do this even though my nervous system, my emotions, my memories, my impulses are telling me to do something else. And what that teaches you to do is it teaches you every time an uncomfortable feeling comes up, which, by the way, an uncomfortable feeling is a potential prison. Sadness, anger, resentment, fear, self-hatred, laziness, wanting to go get loaded, wanting to get drunk, wanting to smoke a cigarette, wanting to drink some coffee, wanting to binge on porn, whatever it is. Whenever that comes up, that is a potential prison. And if you let that dictate your actions, which includes your beliefs, your assumptions, if you let that dictate your actions, you will then be imprisoned by it. You will become attached. You will then become addicted, and you won't be able to get out. Feeling sorry for yourself never accomplishes anything. Worrying never accomplishes anything. Being angry never accomplishes anything. They're prisons. But when you choose to do the opposite of that, and if you are really cognizant of it, every time an uncomfortable feeling comes up, instead of letting it get to the point where it gets into your nervous system and becomes an impulse, you immediately say, I'm sorry. I apologize to myself for having that memory. I'm going to act on my soul's bliss. I'm not going to act on this memory. And eventually that emotion won't get enough oxygen, and it will starve itself and it will dissipate. But if you buy into it, you worry about it, you start to believe something negative, you start to act on it, you do something to stuff the feeling down or distract yourself, you've now empowered it, it's now got food, it's going to stay alive, and it's going to own you. You're going to be its prison bitch. You're going to have to sit on that bottom bunk, if you know what I mean. All right. Anyway, I'm starting to babble, so I'll open it up for questions. If you have a question, please write the word question in all caps so that I see it. That's the point. Write the word question in all caps so that I see it. If you have a feeling, write the word feeling in all caps so I see it. I can't make it any clearer than that. If I don't see it, I might pass it by. If it's not a question or a feeling, I won't read it. Dabbler Deluxe question, will this perfect planet be individual or collective? Meaning, will I get everything I want from life as I want it? Now that you asked that question probably early on, and now I'll just give you some time to think about it. What do you think? I think you should meditate on that, because my answer isn't going to help you. First off, how do you know my answer is going to be right? All I can tell you is that I am seeking to create the perfect planet for me. Now, since I am God, as so are you, if I am able to listen to the bliss and the desires of my soul, then my soul and your soul are going to be in sync. Which means that even if your reality is different from mine, you're on a different continent on this perfect planet that has different things about it, there will be something that I gave to the world that is something that you also wanted. So that's a big, giant... El Biza feeling, wow, as soon as you said that, I got a strong ringing in my right ear, goosebumps, thanks for the confirmation. I don't know what I said. It would have been helpful to know what exactly I said so that I could be part of the experience. But ringing in the right ear means that there's an extraterrestrial being who is communicating to you, because my ear has been like that for over a year. And whenever they come in and they talk to me, my ear goes... So I'm happy to hear that. What else? Agent of the Universe, question. I've been doing the Awakening the Immortals consistently for a couple of months. Things have been doing all right, but how much more time before I experience major change? I feel like I'm going up. I know I won't give up, but I feel like giving up. So, Agent of the Universe, you're in a memory right now. The way this works is you stay in the present moment. When you're in the present moment, you don't ask how much longer. That means you're in the future. When you're in the present moment, you don't say, I've been doing it X amount of time. So, now you can evolve beyond why you've been doing it. You've thought going into it, if I do it for X amount of time, I'll be rewarded like a dog and then I'll feel better. And I've never said that that's what's going to happen. And first off, I don't even know what your reward will be. But the thing about discipline is it's a daily thing. Just accept the fact that the third dimension wants to swallow you up in a prison. And the moment that you stop working towards disciplining yourself towards your soul, the moment you stop doing that, it will swallow you up. People who are suffering from addictions, like people in 12-step groups suffering from addictions, as they're in the 12-step meeting, the older people will say, my addiction is doing push-ups in the parking lot. Meaning if they don't every day put the discipline towards doing their healing, they will be swallowed up. And I've seen people who were free from whatever their addiction was for decades, 50 years. They stopped working on themselves and they died drunk. They died with a needle in their neck. So that doesn't help you, Agent of the Universe. Instead of wanting me to tell you when your feelings are going to go away, practice what I'm teaching you, which is right now you're telling me that you're having a feeling, whatever that is. I'm bored, I don't feel good, I don't even know what your feeling is. That feeling is a memory. It's not a real thing. And you are now having an emotional response to a memory that isn't happening. That you've made a judgment on. I'm bored, I want this isn't happening. And now you're not experiencing the moment. You stay in the moment. You apologize to yourself. You say, I'm sorry that to my lower self that I see this moment as not being perfect. Do that on a daily basis. So, Agent of the Universe, you're addicted to. I'm not going to read all the stuff you're saying because all you're doing is you're just going off. You are like you're on a tear. You're in the hamster wheel. You're trying to be perfect. And I know something about you, so I know that that's what your mind does. Your mind looks for the imperfection, and then you get trapped in it because you think if you can get rid of it, because you think in dualistic terms, everything's either good or bad. It's either perfect or imperfect. And you have to learn to accept the gray area. It's the same thing I've been saying to you for a long time. Let's see, question, Agent of the Universe, do I need to get rid of X as the final obstacle? Because I feel like I do, that because I don't have a partner. Yeah, so again, that's, your thinking isn't helping you. You know, there's one last thing. If I can get rid of this one last thing, then I'll be okay. I want you to get rid of the idea that if you do this, you'll then be okay. You have to learn to be comfortable being uncomfortable. You have to learn to be comfortable when you don't have everything you want, and you're not everything you want, and the world isn't the way you want it. When you no longer need to do or change anything, then that's when perfection comes. So the answer to your question is, do I need to get rid of X as my final obstacle? No. Because you will create another one. You'll create another problem. Because once you have a negative feeling, you look to blame something. Right now you're blaming X, your habit. If I get rid of this habit, you're blaming that. Like that's what's doing it to you. And if you got rid of that, I guarantee you, in your current state of mind, you would find something else that was a problem. And then you'd say, should I get rid of picking my nose in my sleep? If I do that, maybe I'll be okay. No, that's not it. Should I get rid of eating anchovies on my pizza? Will that be you will continue to, because what's happening is you're uncomfortable, so you look for something to blame. You think if you can find the problem and fix it, you'll be okay. And that's very human. But it doesn't work like that. So just get used to being uncomfortable. Because if you don't have to make things perfect in terms of your feeling, and again, your feeling is a response to a thought. Your feeling is a response to a memory. The feeling, you're believing the feeling when you say, this feeling is telling me if I do this, I'll be okay. And your feeling is lying to you. It's again that childish, that infant that is having a feeling and never learned, anyway, your situation is a little bit different, but yeah, bottom line is learn how to be comfortable in the moment. And how do you do that? You when you wake up in the morning, you make a list of all the things that you're happy for. I got both my hands, I got both my feet, I got both my eyes. This is working, I'm losing weight, I'm feeling better physically, I've got a place to live, I'm not homeless, I've got, whatever. My heart is beating, my lungs are working. That's what you should be doing every day. You should be looking for everything that's right, not for the things that are wrong. What else? Nothing else? I guess we're all done. Thank you guys for showing up. Again, this path is a path of action, and action means your beliefs and your assumptions. So I've given you lists of things to assume, and one is start with the assumption that the universe loves you unconditionally, and that the universe is absolutely, totally, and overwhelmingly committed to your bliss and your happiness. Now, I know that's true because there's another assumption that my friends have been giving me, which is you are God. So if I'm God and I become aware of what my authentic desire is, which is not my feelings or my impulses giving me nonsense, but my actual soul telling me what it is that will give me bliss in this life, since I'm God and I become aware of that awareness of my bliss is a command to the universe and all of the beings in the universe to commit to giving me what makes me blissful and happy and fulfilled. That's an assumption. So you start with the assumption that the universe is overwhelmingly focused on the bliss of your soul, you then add another assumption, which is you are God. Therefore, everything, since you created everything, everything must obey you. So then you're left with only one thing, which is, what is it that my soul wants? What is it that my soul wants? And that's what's missing, by the way, Agent of the Universe. There's nothing in any of your comments that talks about anything that your soul wants. You're only focusing on trying to get rid of something that you think is bad, that you think is want, and you go after that. You're not thinking about all the things that aren't perfect. You're thinking about the thing that you want. And now that you've given yourself permission to go get it, you go get it. All right. That's it. I guess I'm done. Thanks, guys, for showing up. I wish you all the best. I love you. And if you're serious about what I'm talking about, then I invite you to binge watch this channel. Learn how to search within the channel. Go to the playlists. And if you're willing to discipline yourself, you've got to have discipline. If you don't have it, it won't serve you. If you're willing to discipline yourself, which is sort of like starving all of the thoughts and memories and impulses, one way you can do that is by subscribing to the Warrior 90-Day Challenge. If you don't like it, you can unsubscribe whenever you want. You got nothing to lose. Literally nothing to lose. It's the same amount of money you'd spend for a video game, for a bag of weed. It's the same amount of money. If you don't like it, you can unsubscribe, and next month you can go buy your bag of weed or your video game, and you'll be right back where you were. You won't have lost anything. If you do it, however, and you discipline yourself, not only just by disciplining yourself to do something that you don't want to do, you will automatically teach yourself how to have choice, to respond to your soul instead of your impulses. But you even get an added benefit, which is when you do this practice, you get access to the most powerful energy system on the planet, which will give you more happiness, more joy, more empowerment. It will give you the ability to keep going and believe in yourself. It will connect you to other dimensions. It will allow your body and your nervous system to expand so that you can handle the power of the higher dimensions which are coming. Once, if you work with higher dimensional beings, you will be able to go further in that interaction. Once the fifth dimensional reality hits, you won't have as big of a change to go through, because you will already be making your way to the fifth dimension. You can be getting into the fifth dimension now. You don't have to wait. And that is by doing this practice and by doing the other stuff we talk about. Okay, that's it. We're all done. I wish you guys all the best. And we'll see you all very soon. Take care.